league where
chats, and then the environment was cleaned up.
First time I was hearing about this stuff. It was totally new to me.
And dealt with social impact consulting.
Was a year of consciousness. So with that consciousness, we are going to see more action, more civic activism.
If you look at the right and freedom of citizens to express themselves freely, that is deteriorating.
One of the major threats to the civic space in 2022 remains government, repressive governments and governmental action.
Advocacy is for a purpose to influence social change in the positive direction.
Hello. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Development Sector Series, which is Devsectorseries. Please remember to like and share this live broadcast so that more people can see it. They can see it during lunchtime. They can see it when they're less busy. So welcome to another very exciting episode. So if you're LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, make sure you just put your name and where you're watching from, put your name, where you're watching from, so that we can notify you whenever we go live. You know, I think when we first started, for those of you who have been with me for a while now, you know, it's been quite a journey. Now, YouTube, we have over 1,500 subscribers. You know, so people are knowing more about the Development Sector Series. People are knowing about organizational development for NGOs. So that's some really exciting stuff. And now I am conducting advocacy through storytelling, documentary production, short film. So I'm very excited about that journey that, you know, God and the universe are taking me through, you know, with regards to maximizing social impact. Okay. So the first couple of things you saw in the intro was the intro montage of our 7-part documentary series. Initially, it was 4 parts, but because we wanted it to be short, bite-sized content kind of work, you know, we decided that we make it 7 episodes. Okay, so the first episode is about just civil society and their role in development, how civil society started. The second part of it is on the role of civil society in education, the role of civil society in nutrition, the role of civil society in healthcare and awareness, and then you know, the role of civil society in the amplification of the voices of marginalized groups, which is in 3 different episodes: youth, women, and persons with disabilities. So it's just some really exciting stuff. The documentary right now, we're done with edits finally, and now we're going into just the latter part of post-production, which is you know, coloring, transcribing, sound editing. So all that is going on as we speak. So we should have this ready really soon. I'm really excited. I can't wait for you guys to see it. In addition to that, which is transitioning into what we're going to be talking about today, is Spaces for Change, and Ford Foundation and West African Civil Society Institute. They came together and put together, I was able to help them produce the 2022 Civic Space Outlook. This talks about, this is not the typical Civic Space video, which just to let you guys know, there are not many on social media. So there's a Civic Space. It's a video on what to look out for in 2022 in the civic space. I'm sure you guys are asking me, what's the civic space? What's this woman talking about? The civic space is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and freedom of association. So what is affecting the civic space in Nigeria in 2022? So that's what, that is what is happening. I think I've been sharing the trailer of that documentary for the past couple of weeks. Well, finally it is out. So as we're discussing, as myself and Martin are talking about politics and the civic space, I will be sharing, I'll pin the documentary down. Those of you who are on YouTube, those of you who are on Facebook and LinkedIn, I'll pin it on this very post so that after that it's only 10 minutes. So it won't take much of your time. It's a very short documentary, which is the purpose of it, because of how much information that we're being bombarded with right now. We want to make sure that they are short, bite-sized, you're able to consume the content quickly, get the message, and move on, okay? So now we're going to get to our special guest today. We are going to be talking politics and the civic space in Nigeria with Mbaseki Martin Obono. He is a human rights lawyer. He is the team lead executive director of TAP Initiatives for Citizens Development. So I'm just excited about this conversation that we're about to have, because a whole lot's been going on in Nigeria right now. So before I read his bio, I'm just going to give a few shout outs, okay? So I'm going to give a shout out to Helen Oshonowa. Mrs. Helen Oshonowa, thank you so much for being here. What time is it over there in Minnesota? What time is it? What time is it over there? Thank you so much for joining me, sis. I appreciate you. Then I have Charles and Chidbuisi Ehiemere. Thank you so much. You have been a Devsectorseries fan. I'm going to come up with a name for y'all that come every week to join me. I'm excited. Thank you so much, Charles, from LinkedIn. And then Felicia Stephen Okoye. I don't know whether you're Miss or Mrs. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you from YouTube. So this is some exciting stuff. I know more people are going to be coming up. If you want me to give you a shout out early, mid, or the end of the series, please put your name and where you're watching from. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to read the bio of our special guest, and then we're going to get started. All right, so now Mbaseki Martin Obono is the team lead at the TAP Initiative for Citizens Development, a non-governmental organization that is using football and other unconventional methods to propagate the theory of change. He's also a founder of Cybercrimes and Fraud Awareness Foundation. Obono studied law at the University of Buckingham and obtained his license to practice law from the Nigerian Law School. He also obtained a certificate program in expanding impact for NGOs and public institutions from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. He's a certified member of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. Martin has attended and spoken at many local and international conferences. He won the grand prize for excellent contribution to Africa in the Age of Uncertainties by Imani Africa in Ghana. He was also recognized and recommended to President Barack Obama in the wake of his first day in office in 2008 by the iGenius community of social entrepreneurs as the few young people who he can work with to reposition Africa for change. He's also a writer with publications on many local and international news media. His recent work has been around human rights and pretrial abuse, energy and law, and sustainable development. Martin also loves to dance. Man, we have something in common because I love to dance too, okay? Hi, Martin, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for being here with us, and having this conversation with us about the civic space and politics in Nigeria. As you know, a lot of drama has been happening right now. So just from a human rights perspective and from a law perspective, it would just be great to get your insights on today. Okay, so we're going to get started. So what do you think of the political atmosphere in Nigeria? Let's hear it.
First of all, I must commend your efforts in hosting this development series. I have attempted being a presenter on radio weekly, and I know how tedious this can be. And I was like, I'm never going to. So I must commend your efforts because you put in a lot in terms of research, and all that, including your guests. So well done, and don't give up like me.
But you're doing other stuff that I probably wouldn't touch. So hey, it's kind of like, hey, whatever you can do to contribute to the civic space.
Right. So basically, the political environment in Nigeria, which automatically is also about the civic space, because is a part of the civic space, because you cannot have your complete civic rights, political rights, because the rights for civic space are political rights essentially. So right to participate, right to assemble, right to speak, right to associate, and right to hold political opinions are the kind of political rights that make up the civic space. So far, it doesn't seem to me as though, to me, it seems as though we have migrated, we have left the very worst. Perhaps we're looking at and expecting that the worst will happen in 2023. But maybe because the president, and the commander-in-chief has not shown so much of a do or die interest in in who he's handing over to. We've not really had so much of experienced the kind of abuse that we would think we would experience prior to elections. However, I also think that it's also too early to call that the violations that we experienced and the attempt to institutionalize some of the abuses and violations of the rights of citizens by law didn't take place, or in the past is not happening now. So, for example, previously, we saw government's direct attempts. We saw government's hand, as we see in Nigeria. But we saw government's hand in terms of trying to reduce people's rights to political participation, including, and civic space, the right to assemble and all that. And how did they do this? They came up with various pieces of legislation, proposed pieces of legislation. So we had the hate speech, we had the NGO bill, we had the infectious disease control bill, we had, including the CAMA that is now enforced and passed into law. We also had a couple of other laws being passed across the states of Nigeria that made citizens especially get worried and became weary about what government's intentions and plans were for 2023. If they didn't have anything to lose in 2023, why are they so afraid that they want to ensure that they shut the mouths of Nigerian citizens and Nigerian people and not make sure that they don't speak? So But we no longer are experiencing or seeing that level of desperation within the system in terms of either trying to push for more of those laws or implementation of those laws. Also, we also have to give it to the INEC, perhaps because of this INEC timetable. We also have seen that there's no much pressure. Before now, there would have been a lot of pressure on the system saying, okay, primaries, and then we'll move into elections. Perhaps the duration, is also the timetable has also tried to reduce the tension, because people have had, after elections, after primaries, they've had 3 months to prepare for the real elections and campaign, for example. So that tension within the 3 months has kind of waned down a little bit compared to what we saw during the primaries. And so it's very important to say that the civic space is more or less like gravitating towards accommodating the 2023 elections and the political space, because still citizens can now talk. At least we have access to our Twitter. We can tweet freely without using VPN, at least at the very so
I know.
the spaces for which we can use to participate in the civic space or get our voices heard are opening up more and increasingly. However, that's at the federal level. At the state level, there is a lot happening across the country. For example, you look at Akwa Ibom State. For example, Akwa Ibom State is one of the states that have very, very not zero tolerance for civic participation. And that has to do with the government. To the state government at that level. We have River State, for example. In River State, you can't protest. In River State, you cannot protest, and that's because of Governor Wike, and his draconian policies and all that. Yes, you can't hold protests in River State. Yes. So he ensured he banned protest in River State. So that is exactly what is happening. And then in River States also, you can see that the government is making serious attempts or taking deliberate steps to also kind of limit the kind of imprison the political parties that tend to oppose him in 2023. So what does he do? If you are an opposition, whether under PDP or APC, he labels you either a kidnapper and goes to demolish your house, and then says, and then sends the police after you, and you probably run out of town and are unable to come and mobilize and get citizens to vote for you. He did that to one of the House of Reps members in one of the federal House of Rep members. He detained him for 2 months. He was detained under the governor's orders for 2 months. So, and if you dare come to the states, so he's using the institutions of government, right, and state institutions to intimidate people, to ensure that people don't have rights to either come and campaign for re-election in the first place. So it's a systemic way of also limiting citizens' rights to freedom of expression. And so we are in, this is the problem we have, not at the center now, but kind of decentralizing the problem and looking at what is happening in various places. You look at places like, places like Kano, for example, where the governor categorically sacks an aide just because the aide said something about his political party at the center. Same thing applicable in the same Kano State, for example, where Governor Ganduje said, if you're not a member of APC, you are not allowed to work in any appointive positions or become anything. You're not going to climb in the cadre because you're not a member of APC. And this also violates constitutional rights to freedom of association, right? And so, so there are a whole lot of pockets of all these abuses across the country that can also shape or reshape the political space. Quite so. So at the center, we are unable to really say what the problem could be, But at the state level, in Cross River, also, I forgot to mention, where the governor is bent on suppressing and repressing opposition voices and even the voices of journalists. There's also a problem there. In Lagos, you have plethora of those problems where if you are, not supporting the APC, your business will be attacked, and there are a lot of those people where their businesses are either grounded or attacked, and so it's a problem. And the thing is not even about the fact that the attacks have to happen. People are just afraid because they say, oh no, my business interests, I don't want to be seen doing this because of my business interests, because the government might come after me. I don't want them to either find something with my licensing renewal or something about my document and say, oh, you're not, and then they run me out of business. So sometimes it's really not about the action, but just about the fear, the existing fear that people cannot take certain political actions or decisions, or they can't even make political utterances, that concern them without being afraid that there will be reprisal. And that is a very big problem.
For me, just because I'm also like an advocacy expert, and it's just very fundamental, Martin, is the state, which is, the boss, they usually use the same tricks.
Absolutely.
It's the same monster, different clothes. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, we would oppress you, we would repress you. And it's not necessarily what they do, it's the fear, which is what you're saying, is the fear of those reprisals that make them, that make people not want to advocate, not to organize, and which is really affecting the civic space. And I'm just going to ask you, maybe you want to expatiate a little more, because you went into my next question. How does the political climate affect the civic space? You've talked about you talked about rivers, you talked about Akwa Ibom, you talked about Kano, you talked about Cross River. In general, how does this affect the civic space?
So the political climate has different ways it affects the civic space. One is the right not to participate, so the fact that you feel either you'll be attacked or your voice will be heard, and that whatever you do, the government doesn't care. Okay, so that brings about apathy in terms of political participation, including voting, and the entire electoral processes, whether it's from the point of enlightenment, voter collection, registration collection, and also voting. It affects all that. So once the political climate is not in line, is not friendly with the people, it definitely affects people's. So, for example, I can't hold a protest around Unity Fountain because the government has caged us mentally and physically. Right, so the ability to express yourself. So if you take Abuja for example, it's a very, very interesting analysis. If you pick Abuja for example, and you look at the way we usually before this administration came into being, we walk straight into Unity Fountain at different levels, from different entry points, and then just have your protests, relax there, and go home at any time you want to go, and all that. The constriction of civic space is a classic example of the Unity Fountain because of this government, the kind of political climate that this government has enthroned. So what do you see? You need to seek permission. You are afraid to go to Unity Fountain. Unity Fountain is meant to be Unity Fountain. The entire country is
Yes.
Fountain. It's supposed to be our own Freedom Square, or where everybody comes to. But what did the government do? Because of fear of anything, of whatever, we don't know. They went there. They fenced that place and gated it.
Stop it.
You've not been to Unity Fountain?
No, because I'm back in Lagos. So I don't. Yes, I'm back in Lagos. So I didn't know that. It must have been recent because I was in Unity Fountain earlier this year.
No, this wasn't. So you see, it's not this.
Maybe I didn't notice. Maybe I just didn't notice.
You didn't notice. shortly after this administration came in, I can't remember when, but I know that immediately this administration came in, they fenced Unity Fountain and gated it, and then what you then have is that there is a consistent armored APC, armored personal car
I
or something
noticed it. I noticed
that
that there's
always
always
inside.
an armored car in
Exactly.
Unity
So
Fountain.
what
Anytime
that
I'll
tells
pass there.
Absolutely. So what that tells you is that the government is telling you that you do not have that freedom to come in. So they've worked on our psyche to say, listen, this space that you normally use freely, you can no longer use it because we are in charge. All right. Then number two is that they've gated it, so they think in their minds that they've caged everyone in that space. So you do not have enough space. So that's the constriction of the civic space. All right.
Yes.
So they've constricted it and restrained it, that within that space is the only thing you can do. And for you to even enter that place to express yourself, you've got permission. And if you're a fearful person, what you then see is that because it's gated, and then you see armed state security agencies inside, what it then tells you is that you can be, you can be overpowered inside, and you won't have a place to run to, and then they will suppress you and repress you and beat you up and do all manner of things to you. Then number three is that you don't have it's a mental thing. So a place where you could walk in freely to express yourself, you no longer do that. So where do you go to express yourself? On the streets? And when you go on the streets, you could also be arrested.
Yes.
So it shows a classic example of how our civic space has been shrunk to a particular place, not just in the spaces or physical spaces, but also in our minds. So as citizens, we need to consistently push. We need to consistently push because the political climate in Nigeria does not favor the ability or the space for us to be able to be expressive enough. It also does not favor the space for us to assemble. Maybe if I want to hold a political rally and say, okay, I want to address members of my political party at Eagle Square, and the present government feels like they don't like your face. What do? They clamp down on you, beat you up, arrest you, and say you're constituting a nuisance. So it gives them that, easy access to everybody. So,
Yeah, and just to add to the conversation as well,
Yeah.
like in I know in Lagos State, with campaigning, as I drive, I'm driving like as a citizen now. I'm seeing banners, and all I see is APC banners. They are everywhere. All the billboards, all the banners, look, I don't have any political affiliation, but I'm like, okay, let me see PDP, let me see Labour, let me see ANPP, let me see the other political parties also be able to have that same platform to also campaign. You get what I'm saying? Okay, this is what I want to do. You get what I'm saying? So it's not a case of I don't have any party affiliation, none. I'm just looking at I'm just saying that if as a citizen that is going to vote, let me at least know what all the other options are so that I can have an option. It shouldn't just be in your face, like, oh, it's just APC. It's just you understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
Yeah. So that is what I noticed.
And that goes down back to the business environment, of the climate, basically, how that also affects the business environment, because almost all the major billboards in Lagos State are owned by the ruling party. So they're not going to allow you put in a billboard that doesn't belong to their political party or that doesn't favor that.
Yeah.
So it's either you are kicked out of the, or was the LASA, yes, Lagos State Advertising or something, or agency. So Also, it's either I know someone whose license was not renewed because he had a lot of billboards around major strategic areas in Lagos. And I mean, I say this on record with full sense of responsibility because I know how much he suffered. So it's also the political environment does not just affect, it also affects businesses. And that's why it's very important that we encourage more people, because it looks like it's only human rights activists or lawyers or society actors that should be speaking up about these things or should be interested in what happens in their government or in the administration. But it affects all of us, affects every one of us. So if you don't vote, if you don't participate in voting, if you don't take full responsibility, things happen to you, and then
Yeah, I think, if you look at the civic space as a whole, it's, yet Nigeria has its own proclivities. You also see it in other countries, even in first world countries like the US, there's also voter suppression there as well. I'm just seeing, these are some of the things that I just noticed as somebody in Lagos, like, let me see other people, other political parties. Let me see what these ones even want to offer Lagos State aside from the current administration, So these are, and for me, it's a double-edged sword for them, and I'm going to say that on record, because if you are doing this and saying, oh, it's only ours that will be shown, if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to run for federal, citizens can just put two and two together. You are not lying, any other person participate. Only, and this is Lagos State, only God knows what is going to happen on the national level. We may end up having a closed civic space. So this is what, in terms of the politics and the civic space, having to look at within that sphere of things. So this transitions me to our third question. What do you think citizens should look out for? Because as we're trying to, when we're performing our civic duty, which is voting, that's what we can do, is vote. So what do you think we should do in terms of looking at the civic space in our various states, nationally? How do we use that to make our decision to vote, to open up the civic space?
So it's so simple. There are people whose antecedents show that they are very authoritarian in their ways of thinking. They do not tolerate dissenting opinions. They do not tolerate anything that is contrary to what they believe. They cannot just stand someone challenging them or asking them questions. They just detest accountability. So for citizens, what they should look out for is just those kinds of people, because that's where you begin to have the dictatorial tendencies that begins to manifest in terms of policy decisions and even legislative decisions. So it's very important that we look at antecedents of people. How do the people standing for elections, whether at the federal level, presidency or House of Reps, Senate, or governorship or House of Assembly, how do you, because leadership is also about your personality. So you can't, your personality, your style, you can't separate your personality from your leadership style. So once you see this, you have to be very careful, and then begin to read. If you see, it's like red flags in a relationship, for example. So, so what are the red flags for the politicians? Are they accommodating? Would they? If I say something to a particular, there are a lot of things we say at the federal level, and we get away with them because federal is big. But there are certain things I can't say, I wouldn't say except I know that I'm willing to face the hammer of states agencies in some states, for example. So like, just imagine somebody, a lawyer who was trying to defend someone, Inibe, who was thrown into prison, but in the courts, a lawyer in the courts without due process for 1 month. So issues like that, just for him advocating, he didn't insult the judge, he wasn't in contempt of court, just because the governor was interested in the case in Akwa Ibom against a particular journalist or so. And then the lawyer went to represent, and the CJ decided that you will go to prison, and she
You're
said,
kidding.
I'm surprised you don't know this. So, so things like this are happening across the country, and people should be aware. And this was the same person, the same governor who thought he was going to run for president. So for me, these are your antecedents. All right, cool. So we move, to another person. So people need to begin to look at these individuals, what they have manifested in the past, who they are, how did they, carry themselves when they were in government, if they've been in government, what have they done, and how do just common interviews, for example, you could tell how somebody can be very ruthless, by the way they answer questions. So we need to do all that, and also look out for what they say. I mean, politicians can lie, but you can also deduce the sincerity from them if you pay close attention. So I think that's what citizens should do, and they shouldn't also be afraid of trying to vote out people when they vote after they voted them in. People should continue to demand for change until we get it. We'll keep trying.
Okay, so now we're talking about them voting. Now, do you think right now, given the Electoral Act, given some of the changes, INEC changes and unchanges, I don't know what, based on what I've been following, what do you think the civic space is open enough for a free, fair, and credible election?
So this is a very dicey question, because it depends. So the answer would be it depends, and it largely depends on where. So let's take, for example, if we break down Nigeria into the 6 geopolitical zones, currently, if you look at the Northeast, there are still some local governments that are still falling under the hands of Boko Haram and insecurity. If you look at the Southeast, for example, you will see that there are a lot of places that are ungovernable, ungoverned territories. For example, some parts of Imo states are ungoverned territories because of IPOB and the killings, and then the criminal elements that are there as well. And if you look at the North Central, for example, there are also headers and farmer crisis that has left some places like you can't even walk through those areas or drive through those areas without. You look at Southern Kaduna, that's part of the Northwest. You also look at the banditry in Zamfara and Sokoto, so you then look at the Southwest, for example. You look at Ekiti, from Ekiti-Pupa down to Ondo states, and that axis down to Lokoja, right? There are also a lot of places that are red zones that you can't even walk. And now this is just driving by. I'm not talking about you living there and standing to vote. So the civic space, the environment, the political environment, that will guarantee a free and fair election isn't there, because citizens are afraid to come out and vote. And once citizens will be afraid to come out to vote, once citizens are afraid to come out to vote, then what happens? Voter suppression happens. And then that's when the candidates in the election, depending on their strongholds, now decide to be able to manipulate the electoral processes. Hopefully with Beavers, we may not be able to have that. We're still waiting to see what the magic the political parties might want to throw before the elections happen. So until then, we can't really guarantee. But the level of insecurity cuts across all the 6 geopolitical zones, except perhaps even including the South. River State also is there. Cross River is also there. Bayelsa is also having its own. And so you can't categorically run away from the crisis across the 6 geopolitical zones that should guarantee free and fair elections. And free and fair election has to do with citizens' what? Participation. Their right to participate in the elections.
This is some very good insight. Thank you so much for that very candid analysis. So now we've talked about citizen participation. Now we want to now go into the political parties themselves. How does the shrinking civic space, how does this affect political parties as they provide us the platform? Because obviously within the Electoral Act and the Not Too Young to Run, we weren't able to really put in the independent candidacy. So how does the civic space affect political parties as they campaign, provide us the platform for us to engage in the political process? How does the civic space affect them?
So I think it's the other way around. How does political
Okay.
parties affect civic space?
True. Yeah.
Yes. So because it's the political environment that impacts on the civic space largely. So for me, it's how the political parties conduct themselves. And political parties in Nigeria have successfully ensured that the elections in Nigeria are consistently a contest between men. Therefore, what happens from the moment meetings are organized? Meetings are planned, called for, middle of the night.
I know.
And and someone called for a meeting recently, and it was a lady, and she said the meeting should be by 10 p.m. And some other person was meant to be at the meeting. It was also, he had to do with the political environment. And one of the ladies who was supposed to come was like, 10 o'clock, where am I going to? And this is even a single lady, talk more of if she was married.
How to talk of a married woman? You can't go out. Where are you going at that time of the night?
Exactly. So I decided I was going to pick her up, drive her to the meeting because our contributions were very, very important. And so we needed it. So if meetings are held at this point in time where decisions are being made for either the political party or even the country, so how many women have that opportunity to participate? So therefore, the political parties and the nature of politics in Nigeria as a whole, has been able to kick out women from participation. So by so doing, their own civic, rights are also being affected. And so they can't also participate because when the decisions are made, I can't be reporting to you after the meeting because I will have gone to the meeting to discuss my own interests.
Yes, exactly.
And then the interest of the woman or the women will not be carried on or, will not be protected because on that table, perhaps there will be 10 men and 1 woman. And once that woman is there, her voice will be overshadowed by the voices of the men. So it is how political parties and politicians hold their meetings that I think also impacts the civic space. And so you now have fewer women. You have perhaps 21 women represented at the National Assembly currently. I can't remember the ones at the House, at the Senate, and the ones at the bottom.
I think those are single digits. I know in the Senate.
Yeah. So it's all crazy, and so we don't have that level of. So the political parties are not. Also, one very 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 important part that political parties don't also. One thing they don't do that affects the civic space is their ability to organize. Their ability to organize citizens, Nigerian citizens, and the general public to take action, to say, okay, listen, I'm a member of COA, and so COA party stands against this policy by the APC government, for example, and say,
yes.
Organize, rally people, go on the streets, hold protests, go to the National Assembly, speak, go to the presidency, do everything, be politically active. Political parties are and
I noticed they don't do that because, like, for example, now when the APC got in and then there were some various draconian laws, I didn't really hear PDP say, no, we're against this, we don't agree with that, because if you're able to drive that kind of momentum, it might be a bit easier. But one thing I've noticed, okay,
Mm.
is that in Nigeria, it's not really political. You're not like, there are no party loyalists.
There are no
So
political ideologies.
no,
Political
they are
parties.
not. I have a relative that has
Yeah.
been in PDP forever. He has been in PDP. In fact, if you see, it's PDP, but
Mhm.
it's people like him are very minuscule. You don't have that many people that are like, okay, this is my party. I am loyal to this party.
Yes.
But so a lot of them don't want to criticize because they're like, I don't know whether I'm going to be in this party by the end of the month. What are you talking about? So it's a fundamental flaw there. And I don't know how that can be fixed, because a place like the US, in the UK, you have the conservative, you have Labour, you understand? And everybody has their alliances and their values and their ideals. But this is our country, my dear. You don't really, have you noticed something? Sorry, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but have you noticed something? You
Mhm.
don't have anybody that says, okay, this is the ideology of PDP. This is the ideology of APC. This is the ideology. Well, we are beginning to understand the ideology of Labour, but by the time the others begin to join Labour, if the presidency goes to Labour, I don't know whether they will have the same. It may be end up by like the other two, that there's no ideology. So that each party should have their own ideology. So as citizens can say, okay, this is my ideology, these are my values, these are my norms. Okay, they are more in line with PDP, they are more in line with APC, Labour, in AMPP. You get what I'm saying? I'm just,
No.
because
So the
things are
thing is that I don't even agree that Labour Party has a different ideology, because if you listen to Peter Obi, for example, if you listen to him critically, you will know that Peter Obi is a full capitalist.
no, he's a capitalist. He's a capitalist, yeah.
And so for Labour Party to pick Obi as their presidential candidate, including their vice presidential candidate, that is a total no-no. So you can now see that we really do not have political ideologies in Nigeria. And Obi is a full-time conservative, full-time. I've even heard him say that I'm a conservative at heart. In UK, you can come, let's come and deny it. We were in a meeting together and he said it's conservative parties of friends of conservative party in the UK, where Obi said it that he's conservative at heart. However, political parties in Nigeria do not have ideologies, and that is the reason they cannot. And you put it succinctly, because they feel like today I can be here, or more governments might change hand, I might find myself here, and so they don't want to criticize. But if it's also because of the fact that Nigerians really, everything about Nigeria is politics, right? People go into politics not to make a change, but because they want to make money, and they also want to get positions and just be relevant. So if that you want to maintain your relevance, because there are people who just seek political appointments and ask governors or president, give me appointment, don't pay me salaries. It's just relevance they are seeking. And they just want office where they can talk. That's all. There are people who want to be in the office because they want to make money, or they want to become, there are others who probably go in the office because they want to work. However, it's very difficult for you to find political parties who can hold the ruling party, because also you need to understand the way some of these mushroom parties come up. The founder of Action Alliance in Nigeria was a governor under APC. The founder of founder of Kowa Party, one of the founders of Kowa Party, was a vice presidential candidate to ACN.
Oh my goodness.
Some of the PDP also open, register political parties that they want to use for some clandestine activities. So these parties belong to are just registered by people who just want to for personal reasons, not because they believe in anything. At least for the good thing is that COA party at least stands for something. At least we can see them trying to do one or two things. But in the real sense, 99.9 of Nigerian political parties don't stand for anything. The reason, and maybe maybe Buhari, like Buhari stands for something. You can see that Buhari stands. You can tell that Buhari stands for something. He stands for himself, for nobody. So he has made the political party look like it's for himself. But at the same time, you can't look at PDP and say, okay, they stand for. But at least we know that PDP is a no man's party, and you can go into PDP and talk anyhow, and nobody will. That what Wike is doing. Wike cannot try it when he's in APC.
No, he can't.
He can't try it if he's in APC.
No, they will clip his wings. They will clip his wings very quickly.
They will not. If he's clipping of wings, is a different thing. They will put him in a grinder and do like this, and carry his powder. So
they'll deal with him.
So at least you can see that in terms of fundamental freedom and expression, right? You can actually be in PDP and do anyhow, because perhaps the party doesn't belong to anyone. Well, you can't try that in other political parties. However, what we are then saying is that how can this same PDP, this same party organize, because it's the largest political party for that, I think, in Nigeria, if they are able to mobilize their party members to take political stance and decision, on policy decisions of government. So, for example, till today, this government has appointed party members into INEC to be INEC commissioner.
Yep.
What is PDP's position on that or to that? These are the actual beneficiaries of the electoral system. It's not you.
That is the part I don't understand.
They don't so they leave the battle for you and I, who are in the fourth realm. What realm are we? Third or fourth?
The fourth sector, and they are trying to crush us as it is.
And they are also trying to crush us. They leave the problem to us for us to help them fix. And that's very pathetic. So political parties need to really wake up. Let them wake up. If PDP wins 2023 election, let people in APC remain in APC and suffer for the next 8 years or 4 years and become those.
Then they'll cross carpet.
And then be the activist, lead protest to National Assembly. Let Tinubu lead protest and do all manner of things. That's the only way we can actually affect the civic space, when we see that, because it's very difficult for you. I think it's an unspoken word or something, or a convention. You can't arrest you can't maybe prosecute the national chairman of a major political party, maybe because it might be seen. I'm not sure. I heard this before, but it's like you can't. If you do that, a major political party, that means you're showing that you don't tolerate dissenting opinions, right? So political parties or governments try as much as they can to avoid that. So if I know that, maybe who else? I don't even know Labour Party chairman. Because they don't talk. He's everywhere. And that's the thing. Now Labour Party is being built around Obi. That means if Obi leaves Labour Party, the party crumbles.
I know.
Because the Labour Party, because the Labour Party is just like Buhari now, for example. The day Buhari leaves APC is finished. Perhaps Tinubu, everywhere will scatter. So the same thing, if you remove, so we need to begin to build political institutions.
Political institutions, like the way it is in places like the
other
US,
countries,
the UK, they have
sense.
Yes, they are institutions and they know what and they are doing. So I'm going to go into INEC, okay? Right. So the EMBs now, in our case, is INEC. So what is INEC's role in maintaining an open civic space? And from the looks of things, political appointees are put in and become resident electoral commissioners. Can you just talk more about INEC in their role in maintaining the civic space, in their role of even implementing this electoral act in the first place, and how they are going to do it? and I know it's a multi-layered question, but what the government is trying to do to undermine the Electoral Act and the civic space in general.
Let's begin with the primaries. Right? During the primaries, some people came out and said that they paid money to delegates. What happened? That delegates did not vote for them. They came to cry to us, not knowing that they came to confess. Those are confessional statements in law. That you bribed, you gave bribe, and then you now asked the parties or the members of the what's it called now, of the delegates, that they should refund your money. That means bribe failed. Dino Milaye did that in what's it called? In Kogi. What's his name? Namadi Sambo's son in House of Reps did that under people as well. There are a couple of other people who said, "Give me back my money because you didn't vote for me." So, what did INEC do? INEC, there was no petition against the IG of police or even the ICPC to say these are corrupt practices, go and investigate, arrest them, do this and that. We didn't hear anything. So that's the big, and so what you need to understand, the layer, like you rightly said, the multi-layer. So there is vote buying, right? So that means that to the threshold buying in an election, I don't stand a chance, for example. Okay, so that automatically kicks me out of the space to participate in politics because I don't have the money. Now, no matter how skilled or learned or competent I am to be a governor or a president, if I cannot get into the primaries, if I'm kicked out of the primaries, there is nothing I can do. I can't contribute anything. And so what I never ought to have done, was to set an example with these people, or set examples with these people to say, hey, from primaries, we are checking votes buying, and we are not just going to be waiting for you on the field to pick the people or arrest the ones who do like 2,000 or 5,000 naira at the polling unit. But we want to start with the big dogs, who are the ones that actually are beneficiaries or implementers and encouragers of votes buying. That's what government ought to have, or INEC ought to have done from the beginning. Now they failed in that aspect. Can they get it right? I doubt they can. And this is how they affect the civic space, because now I can't participate because election is a cash and carry elections. So all this question about all this current outcry of foreign money coming in. Sorry, it's just noise. So funding political parties soliciting for what's that called now? Funds from international diaspora funds and the rest of that under the electoral
Labour
act.
Party.
I think it's not just Labour Party, all the political parties. Shebi Tinubu went to France.
Yeah, he went to London. Yeah,
he went to France to meet the Shagori brothers. What happened with the Shagori brothers? Atiku goes to Dubai. Okay, he has not gone to before election. That's when he went to. Before the primaries, that's when he was in Dubai. So all these are all the questions that we need to begin to ask. Section 85 of the Electoral Act provides all the necessary the guidelines. That is a criminal. He did not say is that it's a criminal offense. If a political party is caught doing that. But would INEC, according to Wiki, have the balls to go after them? I doubt it.
Honestly. When and Nigerian politics, it's like a movie. You can just take popcorn and just be eating popcorn and watching. It's just It's
Should I blow your mind? Should I blow your
what?
mind?
Okay.
So what I do in my spare time, if I come back from work, I'm tired, I just want to have a good laugh. Do you know what I do? I go on YouTube, look for some of the interviews conducted by Fayose or Dino Milaye, and I just sit down, or even Wiki, I just sit down and have a fantastic laugh. Like, oh my God, I will laugh from beginning to end. Sometimes I pause, rewind, go, do all manner, back and check. So Nigeria's, you're not wrong. The political
Yeah.
space is full of drama. Or
It's
Fanny
drama.
Kayode, or Fanny.
Yeah,
So
Fani Kayode and Melaya are fighting now. Okay,
I'm giving you just, these are real interviews. Just go on, like,
Yeah.
maybe Shehu Okinbaloye on channels. Sit down,
Mm.
Google Shehu and Fanny Kayode interviews, or Shehu and Fayose, or Shehu and Dino Milaye. Leave the rest. These are leaders. They are supposed to be leaders.
It's really, really, really interesting. But let me go to the comments. We have quite a few comments, honestly. We have, and there's a question here on LinkedIn. It's by Charles Chibuisi Ihemere. He says, what happens to situations in the northern Nigeria where individuals lay claim to polling unit? As such, no one can vote aside for the party of their choice. So you have that. So that's another issue with the civic space. And then he also commented again. He said, who is APC and who is PDP? Same people cross carpeting. Then we have I think it's going to be the same.
Candidate was for the former presidential vice presidents now.
Yes.
The under PDP.
Yes.
What's the other one's name? Dati Babi Ahmed. Was he not he ran on PDP press? Both of them were PDP presidential aspirants.
They are now honestly, we're just so we have and it says here most Nigerian politicians are just for the money, no value, no vision, no drive.
Absolutely.
Then we have this from Facebook Live, and Mrs. Ibodage Ahabwe. It says Nigerian politicians have no ideological belief. They go wherever benefits them personally. Had Atiku lost PDP ticket, I guarantee you he will have been romancing another party by now. All they are concerned with is personal gains and not service to the people. So these are some of the comments that we are getting based on our discussion. So I wanted to just kind of get your final thoughts before we round up.
So I think we need to begin to look in. We need to build political institutions that are independent of. So I was asking someone the other day. I said, for 16 years that PDP was in power, do they have an institution where, if they want to run for an election, they can go to that pool to say, you have been here. So what does the institution do, for example? The institute or institution or whatever you call it, the institute sends people to either Ivy colleges to say, go there, go and learn, how to run an election, how to run a country, how to build, governance. Let people pass through those institutions and then become better and also become loyal to the political party. APC, the same thing. All these political parties need to begin to have training schools, for example, where they can send their people to other countries to go and observe elections, to see how elections are done, to work in political campaigns in different countries, just for exposure. And then when they come back home, they can see the things that are good and they see the things that are bad and say, okay, we want to replicate the good ones, we don't want to replicate the bad ones. So these are things that political parties need to also imbibe, because it's true political parties, like you rightly said, we don't have independent candidates right now. So it is true political parties that we are having all this lots that I just mentioned earlier that make us laugh. So if parties have
people that are skilled, that have decorum, that have respect for human rights, that value the people, the citizens, then we will go a long way in also trying to see that, okay, we have role as a government, citizens also have their role and duty to perform as people, and then we can come to a point of together where we all can move the country forward. Final thoughts.
Thank you so much, Martin. This was a very, very good conversation. Please, those of you who are watching, just make sure you like and share. This helps the algorithm so that it gets it to more people. So if all of you watched it, everybody that watched it today, just like and then share. Those of you on YouTube that are not subscribing to my YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell notification so we can get more. It encourages me to have more great practitioners like Martin and many others to really share with you what we're doing in the sector and our independent insight on what is happening in the country and what we're doing to maximize social impact. Martin, thank you so much. This was such a rich discussion. Thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to join us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
You too, then.
So we had a great discussion with Martin Obono, who is the team lead executive director of TAP Initiative for Citizens Development. So again, thank you so much for watching. So what I'm going to do right now, I have my phone here. What I want to do, right, is pin what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the 2022 Civic Space Outlook to each of the platforms here on this Dev Sector series. So I'm going to pin it. You guys watch it. It's very enlightening. You're gonna love it. It was produced by yours truly, Social Impact Consulting, Efwa Ede, and my team. We produced a wonderful, succinct documentary about 10 to 12 minutes on the Civic Space Outlook in 2022, sponsored by Spaces for Change and Ford Foundation and the West African Civil Society Institute in Ghana. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you again next week. Let's change the world together, y'all. Take care.